For me? Wow, thank you very much. It's okay, like you can have it. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll take it.
Drink it.
Thank you very much.
Drink it.
Yum, yum.
Can you drink it?
Coffee. Okay, hi, you're watching Great Speed Eats, and I'm here in the green zone of Chinatown complex to talk about the stall behind me. That stall over there. Claypot and Cooked Food Kitchen. The stall is located along what I call Cantonese Road, where almost every single stall in this area specializes in Cantonese food. And Claypot and Cooked Food Kitchen, in particular, specializes in very good old-school Cantonese restaurant-style dishes. To give it a bit of context, it is a Tuesday morning and it is about 10 a.m. or so. They open quite early, the stall. They open about 10, 9:30 around there, and they've already had several orders lah. So there will be a bit of a wait. The stall has a menu of some 20 dishes, and every one of these dishes that I've tried has been very compelling. The Zi Cha stall has been in operation for almost 4 decades, and they are incredibly popular. From their opening time at 10 a.m. until their closing time after lunch, expect a waiting time of at least half an hour. But for those who don't know what Zi Cha is, let me briefly explain. It is Hokkien dialect for cooked food, and the traditional definition in the 1970s and 80s refers to Chinese eateries located in hawker stalls, coffee shops, or shop houses where they sell a range of Chinese dishes that are budget friendly. That said, there are many Zi Cha eateries these days that cross over into Chinese restaurant territory. But that's a whole other story lah, which I won't get into. So anyway, Claypot and Cooked Food Kitchen is helmed by Uncle Hong, or Hong Ko. He cut his teeth at Lai Wah, a heritage Cantonese restaurant in Singapore, and trained under the legendary chef Tham Yui Kai for a few years before starting his own Zi Cha stall at Silat Street. Tham Yui Kai was one of the 4 legendary chefs who were masters of Cantonese cuisine in Singapore during the 1960s to the 1980s. After many decades at Silat Street, Uncle Hong moved to his current location at Chinatown Complex around 2009. So come, there's a taste. Hello, 咕噜有一个，你有 Sambal Kang Kong 吗？没有，没有Kang Kong，我个Kailan啊，还要饭一个。Okay, 好，谢谢。So if you notice the cooking at the back, right, you realize that Uncle Hong is actually a one-man team, and he does all the cooking himself. His wife and another helper will take orders, and they will serve the dishes to customers' tables. The prep of ingredients is done by Hong and his wife early in the morning before the store opens at 10 a.m. on weekdays. So I've placed my order for 2 very common Zi Cha dishes. Dishes that every Chinese Singaporean will know lah. Sweet and sour pork and wok fried Kailan, or as the stall calls it, Kailan in oyster sauce. These dishes may be commonplace, but Uncle Hong's rendition really transforms them into something really quite special. When they come, you'll know what I mean. So let's just wait. Yeah.
这个可以吗
？OK， 好。
15块5。
15块5毛。
谢谢你。
好，谢谢。So this is the sweet and sour pork. And this is the Kailan in oyster sauce. So as I said, sweet and sour pork is a very common Chinese dish, but the quality of a kolo yok dish, which is a sweet and sour pork kolo yok, is where many Zi Cha eateries are judged on, and the version at Claypot and Cooked Food Kitchen is excellent through and through. So just try this. So the pork is fairly thick sliced, it's pre-marinated, and it's a nice medium savouriness, and it isn't over battered. Each piece of meat has a very thin, crispy batter. And sweet and sour pork has a nice meaty texture, still with a bit of moisture inside and a bit of softness. The pieces are also fairly large, And that means that each piece has got more moistness in them. There's a little wok hei char to every piece, and that adds a bit of smokiness to the taste. The sauce, hang on, let me get the sauce with you. Trying the sauce with a bit of the rice. The sauce itself is nicely sweet and sour, but it leans a little bit more towards the tangy side, very slightly. Sometimes it leans too much, but very often it's not like. So when you eat it, the meat, the sauce together, right, it's sweet and sour from the sauce, and it's got a nice meaty savouriness from the meat, like how a good sweet and sour pork should be like. Sometimes I've noticed a nice underlying bitterness to the taste, and there's a little bit here, and that's a good thing. Alcohol will occasionally add lemon peel to make the sauce. That's the lemon peel. Preserved lemon peel, fantastic. Oh god. So, the slightly bitter sauce, the smoky aroma really makes for some very addictive eating lah, when you pair it with rice. So as you can see, there's a bit of char lah, on every piece. There's a particular char just like that. So there are also other ingredients, like there are green peppers, slightly seared, but they still retain the vegetable crunch. And then there's huge, large chopped onions. Barely seared, again with a lot of vegetable crunch. And then there are tomatoes. Soft and cooked through. As for the sweet and sour pork, right, it used to be marinated with hawthorn to give it a natural sweetness and to give it a distinctive red hue. But Uncle Hong seems to have done away with that practice these days lah. Still, it's hands down one of the best and more interesting sweet and sour pork dishes that I've encountered at a Chinatown restaurant. I've got sweet and sour pork and a bit of onion on top, and that's just glorious. So good. Next, the wok fried Kailan. Wok fried vegetable dishes, a very common staple in Chinatown restaurants. And this dish in particular, Kailan, Chinese broccoli, is actually used. God. Baby Kailan is used, I suspect. That's why it's thinner and not so bitter. Yeah? Quite thin. And if you examine the greens itself, right, there's a bit of wok chari on the outside of many vegetable strands. And that's why the dish has a wonderfully smoky aroma. Not too sure if you can see it lah, but you can see, right, there's a very slight charring to every vegetable strand. But yet, thanks to the use of a proper high BTU, high heat gas hob, right, where the heat is super intense, the Kailan still retains its crunch. The slightly reduced sauce here is nicely savoury, oil-rich and aromatic. A nice mix of a bit of oyster sauce, lots of oil notes, and lots and lots of garlic and big ginger flavours. So if you see, right, the ginger here is huge. Look at that. Ooh, fantastic. You also offer another dish, which they call cabbage with oyster sauce. It's basically the same treatment as the Kailan, but they use bok choy, nai pai instead. Seared onion, so good you can eat it on its own. Okay, all finished. But this is not the end of the vlog, okay? For the rest of the video, I'm actually going to go through all the dishes that they offer at this stall. But if I eat through all of them and go through all the little details, right, the vlog is going to be way too long. So I'll just give you my tasting notes on all the dishes that I've eaten here. So firstly, the most popular dish here is their Braised Fish Head. A signature dish at Claypot and Cook Food Kitchen. It's a popular order during celebrations like Chinese New Year, anniversaries and birthdays. It's a very unusual dish because half of a medium to large song fish head is deep fried, then served with a braising sauce that's made with tao chiu, salted bean paste, as the primary flavouring condiment. Usually you get steamed fish head or it's stewed like fish head curry, but deep fried is actually quite unusual. The overall flavour is a light balance of sour, savoury and spiciness. There are egg swirls to thicken up the sauce, and the soft onions and cabbage provide a little vegetable sweetness to the overall taste. The dish actually comes with a myriad of a whole bunch of other ingredients. Fried yam, onions, cabbage, roast pork belly, fried soft tofu, green peppers, cut chilies, and that makes the dish great as a single sharing dish to be eaten with rice. The vegetables are cooked, but they still retain their crunch, and the pork belly pieces are thick cut with a meat texture that's still moist, and the skin still has little crispness. As for the fish, it's deep fried so well that it's on the edge of being burnt, and the bones and the fins and the ends are crisp enough to crunch into. Highly recommended. So next on the list is their Sambal Kang Kong. The Kang Kong comes crunchy, and there are very noticeable chili and belacan flavors in the taste. A bit of dried prawn is also thrown in for even more earthy savouriness, but the overall taste never gets too savoury. That said, the belacan flavour might be a little light for some people. The next dish, Gourd Ribs. It's a fairly common Tzi Char dish. The style here is wok fried with a reduced thick sauce, and it's robust with lots of oil-rich black bean sauce that's full of flavour but isn't salty, and it's nicely mixed with some bitterness from the bitter gourd. It's also nice that the bitter gourd is cut very thick as opposed to thinly sliced. So in other words, that means that they make no excuses and they're assuming that you're a bitter gourd lover when you order this dish. The pork ribs come very soft and tender, and the dish comes with lots of chopped onions and red chilies. The next must-order dish is their Claypot Pork Liver. Another common Tzi Char dish, their Claypot liver here is extremely well done, as the pork liver is very fresh and comes barely seared. And it has a texture that stays bouncy and pink throughout the whole duration of the eating. Only a little of that cooked liver creaminess, right, comes in towards the end of the meal, and that is a very impressive feat. If you observe how they cook it, the pot is actually heated up, then raw liver is put inside, then a searing hot sauce is poured over it. It's mixed for a bit, and that's it. The gravy is very robust and deep, but not salty, and it has lots of ginger and spring onion herb flavours, thanks to the fact that they actually put in a lot of big spring onion pieces and large pieces of ginger in the clay pot. Another popular dish is their pork ribs, pai gu wang, which is another Tzi Char staple. A mix of loin and prime ribs are marinated, deep fried, then quickly stir-fried, wok-fried with a sweet sour sauce. Here it comes very well executed, with lots of smoky wok hei notes and deep caramelized savoury sweet flavours. Only a bit of bicarb soda is used to tenderize the meat, and the meat comes nicely seasoned, nicely crisp and softly moist. Complementing the pork ribs are lots of soft caramelized onions on top. The stall's classic yang chow fried rice is also another must order. The dish is found in practically every Chinese restaurant around the world, and the version from Claypot and Cook Fook Kitchen is very well done. It's got prawns, bean sprouts, egg, salted fish and char siu thrown in. The base flavour is a simple mix of oil, salt and soy sauce, but the key to this dish is the addition of big chunks of earthy fried salted fish and lots of wok hei that transports the dish to another level. If you examine the fried rice, you'll notice a bit of charring on almost every grain of rice, which is an incredible feat as the rice still has a nice bouncy texture and still enough moisture. The attention to detail is also impressive. The char siu comes in larger chunks, so it has a nice tender meat texture. The egg is fried with little softness, and the bean sprouts have their heads and roots meticulously plucked out. The one downside is that the prawns do come a little overcooked and powdery on the rare occasion, but usually they are decently fresh. As for their prawn paste chicken, ha cheong kai, it's good, but it depends on how much prawn paste flavour you like in the marinade. The prawn paste flavour is there, but it's on the lighter side, and because of that, you can taste the chicken and the marinade more. But there are some who might like more of that earthy punch. The version here tends to use bony chicken parts so that the chicken meat is sweeter and the texture is more tender. They do use breast meat, but they've marinated it enough such that the meat is juicy. It is also fried such that there is no oil residue and a very light batter is used, just enough for a bit of a crispness. Another common dish at Chinese Tzi Char eateries and restaurants is fish with ginger and spring onions. The dish here is wok fried and served with lots of robust, thick seafood savoury gravy. They throw in lots of ginger and spring onions so that it gives the dish a lot of aroma and flavour. The fish is thick sliced and marinated with very little bicarb soda to tenderize the fish a bit, and is seared in the wok a bit with a little bit of charring. That said, I have encountered the occasional time where the fish is treated with a little bit too much bicarb, and it turns out way too soft and lacking texture, but as I said, it is pretty rare. Another popular dish is the stall's Pao Chicken. A classic Chinese dish, the version at Claypot and Cook Food Kitchen is slightly stripped down in terms of ingredients. So you won't find any spring onions or peanuts. These are ingredients which are usually common for the dish, but the flavors are still very compelling. The sweet and sour sauce is robust and comes nicely caramelized with a nice smoky and savory flavor coming from the slightly charred and marinated chicken. Large chunks of wok fried garlic, ginger and dried chilies are thrown in to give the dish lots of aromatic flavors. A caveat though, the flavors are mostly spot on, but Uncle Hong does make the dish a little too tangy for me on the rare occasion. So the highlight of the dish here, or any good Kung Pao chicken for that matter, is the triple smokiness you get from the caramelized sugar, the slight charred burnt bits from the chicken, and the earthy dried chili flavor. So it is like an incredibly deep smoky flavor that you get when you cut into this dish. The chicken skin is also left on the chicken for added fat richness, and it's cooked so well that it has a bouncy yet melting texture. So imagine an overall flavor where you get a thick, very flavorful caramel syrup of sweet, oil richness, a bit sour, spicy, and it's a bit savory and lots of spice aroma. This is literally the perfect dish for white rice. So aside from the communal dishes which they have on the menu, the stall also has a range of what I call single portion Claypot dishes. So they usually come in a Claypot just like this, and they're usually the size. It's a medium to large portion for one, and they have everything inside, protein and vegetables. Some Claypot dishes have carbohydrate staples like Hor Fun as well. In the other Claypot dishes, you need to order rice with it to make it a complete meal. So the first are the noodle staple dishes that they have. Seafood Hor Fun or with Yee Mee. A staple at Zicha Eateries, the version here is very well executed with a nice char in the noodles and a thick, robust seafood stock that's more prawn stock flavoured than seafood. And the flavour is much more robust than is usual for this dish at your average Zicha stall. There is also less starch used to thicken the gravy, as is usual. Generous egg swirls are used as a thickening agent instead. The ingredients of squid, fish and medium to large prawns are generous for the money, and they come very nicely cooked and not rubbery. You can choose between Hor Fun and yellow noodles. Both staples have a nice char on them. With Yee Mee, it's a little more eggy oil richness in the flavour, and with Hor Fun, it's not so rich, but they do swirl in egg drops for some added richness. The other set of Claypot dishes that they have are basically centered around tofu, and they use almost the same flavour base. They are meant to be single dish meals that are eaten with rice. So it's a mix of ginger, garlic, spring onions and cooking wine that's wok fried, then combined with ingredients, and then maybe a little bit of oyster sauce or stock is thrown in. The gravy is thickened up using a bit of cornstarch solution. All Claypot dishes feature deep fried coin tofu with an assortment of ingredients like roast pork or seafood, but the most intriguing version is their salted fish minced chicken tofu. The dish mixes fried golden coin tofu, fried salted fish, large marinated chicken chunks with cabbage, green peppers, large chilies and onions. The use of salted fish results in a more complex savoury flavour in the gravy, and it goes very well with rice, and the chicken comes very tender. The tofu with roast meat has a savoury, deep, rounded, flavoured gravy that isn't overly salty. The seasoned roast pork is chunkily cut and tender, and the dish comes with chaisin, green peppers, onions and red chilies. The seafood version of this dish, seafood tofu, uses a wide mix of ingredients: prawns, fish, squid, coin tofu and chaisin. Prawns are medium to large in size, fresh and half peeled, and they give you 4 of them, which is actually very generous for the price. Fish is seasoned and seared a bit, and the squid has a nice bouncy texture to it. The gravy has a similar rounded, robust flavour, but with an oil-rich seafood character to it. For all 3 dishes, the Claypot stays hot and piping throughout the meal, thanks to the fact that the Claypot is preheated over a flame for a long while beforehand. A warning though, that as these dishes are served in a hot Claypot, ingredients like squid and prawns will get cooked very easily, so eat those ingredients first. Okay, so that's about it. I mean, I've eaten most of the menu here, but I've yet to try 3 or 4 dishes, like their spiced salt, sotong, steamed garupa fish, sea cucumber and shark's fin with crab meat. I've attempted to order them several times, but they never have them for sale. Now, aside from the menu items that they display in front of the stall, they also sell a range of off-menu dishes, which can be pre-ordered, and one of them is the old school and rare dish of wallet chicken. Some people also call this dish lo mai kai. A whole deboned chicken is stuffed with fried glutinous rice, yun chong, liver sausage, lap cheong, waxed sausage, mushroom, salted egg yolk, and other ingredients, then deep fried. It comes sweet with a light savoury undertone and enhanced with all the added ingredients. Uncle Hong also makes the same dish with duck instead of chicken. Another dish is the black bean hor fun, chup hor fun. It's kind of like an old school vegetarian version of Claypot Hor Fun, which comes with bitter gourd, onions, chilies, and is wok fried with black bean sauce. Note that this is the old school interpretation of what vegetarian is, which means that even though no meat is actually used, right, they still use a bit of pork lard in the cooking. Prawn Nuggets is another interesting dish, similar to hei zhou, a deep fried prawn roll dish found in zi char stalls. Prawn and pork mince is mixed with black moss, chopped carrots and water chestnuts, battered, then deep fried and served with a lemon plum sauce. Every bite is crisp and the filling is very nicely moist, rich and savoury, with the lemon plum giving it a tangy sweetness to give it a different dimension and to cut the richness. Bean sprouts with salted fish, another standard zi char dish which is very well loved. It's a Cantonese wok fried vegetable dish that's properly made here. Because all the bean sprout tops and roots are removed, a process that is hardly practiced at zi char stalls because getting the raw ingredient pre-plucked is costly and plucking it yourself is time consuming. The high heat of the wok means that the bean sprouts have that crunchy texture but with a charred searing as well. It's topped with some chili, spring onions and mushrooms for colour. Those are just a sample of the off-menu dishes that I have tried at the stall, and Uncle Hong has many more dishes under his sleeve. Just ask his wife or helper if you're looking for something special. So that's it. A fairly in-depth look at Claypot and Cook Food Kitchen, which sells excellent old-school Cantonese restaurant-style dishes. Bear in mind that I do call this stall a zi char, budget-friendly Chinese food, but Claypot and Cook Food Kitchen are really on the upper end of what a zi char is, so bear that in mind. You know, they also recently increased their prices by an extra $2 for all dishes across the board, except for rice, noodle or vegetable dishes as of late 2020. So it is even less of what a zi char should be. But considering the sheer quality of what you get here, I would say that the prices are still very reasonable. So would I travel half across Singapore to eat here? A definite yes. It sells old school Cantonese dishes that is increasingly harder to find. Check. And it's excellently made. Check. Plus the consistency is there. Plus it's value for money because Uncle Hong hasn't cheapened out on his ingredients. The only downside that he is getting older. And the queues here for his food can be quite insane. But other than that, this is where it's at. I mean, obviously, if you're looking for, you know, a comfortable aircon and exquisite fine dining restaurant quality, you won't get it here lah. It's basically screw the ambience, screw your comfort. This stall is basically about no frills, excellent food and at a great price. So thanks for watching another episode of Great Speed Eats, where I eat through the whole of Singapore. If you liked this very long episode, give a like, comment, subscribe below, turn on the notifications bell, and I'll see you in the next one for more eating. Bye-bye. You want to introduce yourself? Huh? No need ah?
No need.
Okay, just say friend of the stall, right?
Yeah. Okay. Regular.
Okay, so what's this supposed to be ah?
This is shark fin soup, Singapore Chinatown hawker style. It only costs $19. $19 only. Shark fin, genuine, nothing fake, real shark meat, fin, scallop, and crab. Over here, the brown stuff is the flatfish roasted. This is your more affordable and more delicious than the Tonglok style. This is reminiscent of the 50s, the olden days, how they eat shark fin by the roadside in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the other soup is here.
So as a bit of context, this is a bit impromptu. Basically, there are two more dishes which I haven't quite featured yet. Okay, one is the shark's fin with crab meat, and another one is the white fungus soup. Is that right?
Yep.
The white fungus soup. Okay, which is this one?
White fungus go with figs. This is the figs. This is one of the many formulas that this store has.
Yeah.
This one is using figs, so the soup is clear today. There's another one that I was expecting to have, and that is cooked with lo han guo. So normally lo han guo is normally associated with herbal drink
Yeah, correct, yeah.
for sore throat and things like that. But for him, he knows the old traditional way because he has a friend who is in the TCM industry. They will tell him in the olden days you can actually cook it with a soup. It's very, very delicious. And when you put the pork inside and cook it with the lo han guo, the taste comes out almost like a black chicken soup. One of the things about this white fungus soup is that you are given like about 3 petals. So when you serve that time, you must make sure that you cut it so that you won't get the whole lump chunk. These are the nampak hang. You have to use both types, not one type. This is for the lungs. Very good for anti-phobic kind of broth.
Okay, so this is just a taster portion, just to show you. Oh, there we go. That's the other one. Ah, it's too many dishes. See, this is what happens when you vlog with regulars. Very good. See, so this is the typical bean sprouts with salted fish. It's got some chilies, got some mushrooms.
You don't use the ordinary salted fish. You have to use those that comes under the category of mui hyung salted fish. Without the mui hyung, don't use it because the typical NTUC salted fish are very hard.
Yeah.
The mui hyung one are softer.
Yeah.
And usually you go downstairs to the basement of Chinatown complex to buy it.
So as you see, right, this is the shark's fin. Oh, wow. Is this real?
Real shark fin.
Real shark fin, okay. Yes, it's got real shark's fin. I can't believe it. Wow, this is a taste I haven't had in like so long. And the taste of shark fin is really like really special. You can hardly get real shark fin anymore, and you can find it here. Very warm, very stockish. These are wonderful. Very rounded seafood flavor. And of course, you can add some Chinese vinegar if you want to lah. And then the other soup is what they call white fungus soup. It's a savory white fungus soup, which is quite hard to come by lah. So there's white fungus, there's the nuts, and there's pork lah. Very gentle sweetness, rounded savouriness, really nice. So you can tell that it's been sweetened with goji berries, some carrots, and presumably pork bone stock. Simply amazing. So the backstory is that I've been talking to a regular at this stall basically, and they very kindly allowed me to film some of their dishes and they offered me some food, which is very sweet of them. Okay, that's it. End of the vlog. Bye bye.